Today, we are talking with an incredible woman. And let me just ask you before we get started, did you ever want to be an astronaut or play
Mm.
in that
Oh,
field?
that's cute.
Because,
Yeah.
right? Because today we are here with a woman who has dedicated her life to that. She has talked with or worked with all of the people who, or most of the people who are in the aeronautical space industry. And it's so cool. And just been chatting, but help me in joining and Danielle Stapien. Did I say that correctly?
Stepien, but that's okay.
Stapien,
Yeah, it's
who
French.
is, yeah, who is the founder and president of Igniter Engineering. Welcome to the show, Danielle.
Oh, thank you. It's
Yeah.
a pleasure to be here, you're doing great work, so I'm happy to support it.
So tell us a little bit more about what you do. I mean, because we can go on. And this is just such a, what you're up to is incredible. And you're a woman who is playing in a man's field, quite frankly,
Mhm,
and you're playing at an incredibly high level, which is what
mhm.
us here at the Female Millionaire and at Fuel the Fire, we love that. So tell us more about your business. Tell us more about you.
Yeah. So let's see. I am president and founder and CEO, all the, major titles of Igniter Engineering. We just rebranded from Igniter Consulting Group to Igniter Engineering. That was purposeful. We started as a services-based consulting firm for space, projects, basically commercial space projects. Think in the realm of like Blue Origin, SpaceX, et cetera, but not those specifically, right? And then we recently moved and did a full rebrand over to Igniter Engineering. So our actual new website's launching today, so that's exciting. But essentially, the reason we switched that is because we're much more of a product-based company, which means we buy and sell IP, intellectual property. We also, manufacture things. We also design a lot of like stuff that's new and innovative so that other people can do things quicker. Right. So it runs the gambit, but realistically, like one of the passion projects right now is to build a new electric snowmobile. There one exists. It is not good for a number of reasons technically, and therefore there is a market advantage to be in there. And that's fine if someone steals that IP. That's why I'm saying it. The reason we haven't gotten the patent or anything yet, the reason is that like I'm all about like progressing ideas to the next step and progress for humanity and not just profit. So that's a lot. So
Yeah.
I'll stop there.
Well,
Yeah.
okay. So, you talked about that even before we hit record, that you're more about progress, you're more about making impact in the world. However, it takes money. It takes
Yeah.
money to make the type of impact that I think you want to make. It takes a crap ton of money.
Mhm.
So talk to me a little bit more about that. Do you have investors? Are you going for private equity? Talk to me about this.
Yeah. So no, no to all of the above. I have only used my own personal money to fund this business from its inception, literally. So what was that, 2021? Now it's 2024. So it's been over 3 years. We're wildly successful now. I am very grateful to be in this position. But realistically, what I did was I worked my ass off, as in what they call it, an individual contributor, an IC. Right. So that basically means that like in that's a term that sometimes aerospace defense and tech, all three industries I've been in, use. Essentially, that just means, hey, you have amazingly great technical skills in one realm or another, we could use you as an IC, like in one of our teams. So think like software developers, like mechanical engineers, those are all ICs. And then when you go into management, you're like a people manager or whatever, right? So there are two like separate paths in our industry. So I did a lot of really great IC stuff. I was a software engineer. I did supply chain management. I did mechanical engineering, all sorts of things. More or less, I became an expert in whatever thing I needed to learn for that thing. And then I made a lot of money doing it. So, I mean, I started my career at Boeing. That sucked. And then I went over to Airjet Rocketdyne. Then I went to SpaceX. Then I went to, what was after SpaceX? Oh, I took a break and then I started my company. And then I went to Meta, and then I went to Google. But realistically, like, so do you see I'm like looking for my right path and I couldn't find it? And so more or less, like I made a bunch of money. I invested it in good vehicles. made the money work for me, right? And then so it educated myself on the financial side, and then once the money's working for me, honestly, I had a ton of money in stocks since I've been 19 because I educated myself on it, because we have the internet, and I was bored one day and I'm like, oh, I should make money sometime. So I looked up how to do stocks, right? And I'm like, oh, well, that's cool. So you keep doing that over time, and realistically, you'll get money eventually, like one way or the other. Like it's just the way that it goes. If you just don't stop and you just continue to learn, like eventually you'll get better. So I got better, and then so I don't know, made a lot of money, and then started my own company. Have taken small breaks here and there from it. It's a very hard thing to do by yourself. So that's another weird thing. I don't have a co-founder either. It is just me. It is not just me anymore. Obviously, we have a whole team of people, but like when I started it, it was just me. And that is really rough. And I debated changing that many times. And more or less, even to literally a couple of months ago, I have over and over and over again been like, you know what? No, the universe is telling me I should do this by myself. I'm going to do it by myself. And so that's where we're at right now. But, companies buy and sell all the time. So who knows for the future?
Okay. So you have this, now you went through a journey because you were in all kinds of different it sounds like overall it's been tech aeronautical, right?
Correct.
Did you know what your end goal was? Did you know that you wanted to start a company?
No. So that's the whole thing. Like I wanted to be the COO of a major company, one of the ones I worked for, and I was seemingly on a path to get there. And this was communicated to me, and more or less like, it was like, that's a fantastic goal. Like, I would love to do that, because there was a female in that position already who was a fantastic human being, and was a great mentor, and friend, honestly. And, realistically, like I got to that point and I'm like, sounds good. This is a great path for me. This is what I want to do with my career, and more or less some bullshit happened, as it does. And I'm sorry, like I have a line like all of us, and every single one of us draws our own lines. I have a really high bar for like what type of bullshit that I take or don't. And the reason I can do that is because I have some money now. Honestly, just I was very poor for a very long time, so that was not always the case. But now I'm like, I have money. I don't need to take this bullshit. I'll just be homeless for a month. I will live in my car. I don't know. So that was the case when I was super early on, but not anymore. I mean, in each job I got more money. I got the I don't know, worst case scenario got less worse, right? So I'm like, well, I got this much money in the bank. Realistically, I could like not have a job for 6 months, totally, and be completely fine. That's how that started going. And then I got so much money, and I'm like, man, I don't even need a job for the next like 3 years. Whoa, maybe I should do something else with my time and energy, because each one is pissing me off. There must be a reason for that. Maybe the universe is telling me I should not be on this path, right? And so I was having those types of questions with myself. And eventually, I was just like, you know what I'll do? I'll just open an LLC and then like not use it, right? That's how it always starts. Like, oh, I'll open an LLC and I just won't use it. And then of course I used it immediately. And I'm like, oh, maybe I should start a website. And then you do that. And then you're like, oh my God, people are interested in me. That's cool. Maybe I should do this, right? And then it just snowballs. And now we're 3 years in and we're very successful. I'm very grateful. I use my power and influence for good. I try to anyway. And I don't know, I hire a bunch of awesome females, as everyone should. But
very cool. So it's you're not only female led, but also female driven.
Yeah, and female owned,
right?
And all that good stuff. Yeah, no.
Okay.
We try our best. There are not a lot of females in this industry, just by pure numbers.
Yeah.
And so I try, and then it's also like, well, is this the right fit for you? Can we, and all that comes into play. And so we have as many females as possible. Right now, our head of electrical engineering is a female. So that says something, I guess. I don't know.
Okay. So which to me makes it even more challenging in the industry that you're in. So talk to me a bit about that. You have to sell your products, and I'm guessing most of the people you're selling to are men. And so how do you position yourself? How do you approach that so that they are no longer seeing, there's not that bias? You're breaking
Right.
that bias and saying, we have the best damn product you can get. So,
Right.
and it's expensive. Like, how did you
Mhm.
get through that psychologically, but
Yeah.
also in a systematic way?
Yeah, that's a very good question, of course. I mean, honestly, it's hard. That's the that's the answer. But there's ways you can make things better, right? So for me, and obviously, all of what I've learned was trial and error. I mean, obviously, there's also like mentors, whatever. Realistically, 9 times out of 10, what I did, I just tried something, and I'm like, have no idea if this is gonna work. Could be terrible, but I'm open to the universe telling me something different. So if, like, say, it's basically like unit testing. That's a software term. It's basically like unit A/B testing, but for like real life. So I'm like, hey, dude, VP dude of Lockheed Martin, um this is what I do. This is like my first version of my pitch, right? And then I tell him, and then he's like, oh well, and he does some either unconscious bias type thing, maybe, who knows. I'm like, well, he's not listening to me. That's all I can really tell. He's not listening to me. So it doesn't matter, like, if I'm a boy, a girl, LGBTQIA, it does not matter. What I know is, out, like, gender non-bias, he's not listening to me. Don't know why. I could speculate, but realistically, I just know he's not listening to me. So then I would be like, okay, no problem. Thank you for your time. Shake your hand. Go to the next one. So this is like at a conference, right? Conferences are really useful for this because it's unit testing on the fly. So I go to the next guy, VP of whatever at, like, say, Aerospace. That's another one. So Aerospace, hello, I'm Danielle. And then I give him pitch 2 that I literally had AI write for me, or I wrote myself before AI existed, right? And so pitch 2, he's like, maybe this is a different person that has less unconscious bias. That's a potential that we all deal with. But all I know now is that Sierra Space guy like is listening to me. And so to me, that's my non-gendered, data point. And so he listened to number 2. Do you know how I see if it's got unconscious bias? I go to guy 3, and if pitch 2 worked, and then I go back to guy 1 and pitch 2 doesn't work, Lockheed Martin guy, not a good guy. I don't know what's going on with him, but he is clearly doing something that these other guys aren't doing. So I'm going to go to these guys, and then I will respectfully tell Lockheed Martin guy, thank you for your time, and then never reach out to him because it's not worth my time. Right. My time is very valuable, as is all of ours, right? But if you think of your time as a resource that can be depleted by people not worth your time, things start to be perspectived. That's not a word, differently. But yeah. So
okay, so I want to break that down a little bit, because so many, especially as women, we have so much bullshit going on in our head, right? We already have so many things that we're saying to ourselves that hold us back from those big aspirational goals that we have. Right. And so I want to kind of break down what you did. Is you took it from a very practical, strategic standpoint. You didn't let the emotions take over, which is huge, easier said than done, but you went at it from a pragmatic standpoint where you did testing. And so for all of you listening, she talked about Danielle talked about conferences, and what's beautiful about a conference is there's so many potential buyers there, and you just go one by one by one and you tweak it, but you are doing, the A/B testing, which I love. And so instead of, I was just talking to a gentleman actually yesterday, and he said to me, he's like, Midori, I have all these different things that I can offer. I don't have the leads. I don't have the leads. So you need to find leads somewhere. If you don't have leads, I don't care what your business is, you ain't going to make it. And so by going to a conference, putting yourself out there, you're going to figure out more quickly what works.
Sorry, I'll just add some details there too. With that, like, very general story was me at Space Symposium last week. It is 2024. I am a 3+ year veteran. Not veteran, like veteran as in like experienced, not veteran owned small business, not like that, but I'm a women owned small business. We have a lot of revenue. We have a lot of fantastic services and products that every single person at that conference could use because we are so general. It's just a matter of, will they listen to me? And straight up, I did that, exactly what I said to you, but the names were wrong. The Lockheed guy was a great guy, just so you know. But realistically, like, I go to each company and I ask, you know, the same questions and do this, and everyone should do something like this because it is the quickest way to like make your pitch as specific as possible. It is not easy. I was not always this social or outgoing, or this is not like, I mean, this is my genuine self now. But when I was growing up, I had social anxiety, like straight up. That was
How did you get through
medicated.
that? How did you,
Yeah,
how did you change that,
yeah,
that trait?
Yeah, well, so I had social anxiety and I found out why. That's the first thing. So that's therapy. I found out why, and I was like, well, it's because so I was in full-time engineering student. So I was full-time engineering, but I was also poor. So I needed to work full-time to afford college, rent, all of my expenses, right? So I would have full-time engineering jobs. So I would work a full-time schedule, 9 to 5 somewhere, right? And then I'd go to school when I have a minute, I guess. And then hopefully I get a degree eventually. Realistically, that was my goal. And you know, like I am smart and I knew that much. So what I did was I would get the syllabus the first day of class. I'd look at the reading material. I'm like, okay, I've read that book. I know some of that, you know, whatever. And then I take it home and then I wouldn't show up to class the rest of the semester. And then unless there was an in-person test that was mandatory, I would go in, I'd take the test, I'd get 100 on it, and then I'd leave. And I would notice a lot of people were staring at me. And I'm like,
who is that girl?
Yeah, who is that blonde girl who's never here, but somehow gets hundreds on the test? Because the only other time they ever saw me was when I came back in and got my test back, my physical test back, which said 100. And they're like, what'd you get? And I'm like, you don't want to know. And I would leave. Like, just leave me alone. I don't want to be asked questions, right? So essentially, I had social anxiety because I was dealing with a lot of like unconscious bias, sexism, you name it. I mean, realistically, it's like the boys were just like fascinated by me. That's also bad attention. I didn't want that. I just wanted to exist and take my test and get my degree. That was unwanted attention. And, you know, God help them. They just have only seen a few women. But it's like, dude, I shouldn't have to suffer because you have never seen a woman, but I do, right? So anyway, you know, like eventually I worked that out with therapy. I was only on medication, I think like what, 1 month realistically. I really thought that was the only path for me. And then I worked through it with therapy. And then, yeah, I realistically, like I haven't had social anxiety like that ever again. Because I worked through it, which is really nice. And, you know, even when I do feel like, okay, this is making me anxious, I have tools in my tool set now that it doesn't matter and it doesn't prohibit me at all, like zero. So I don't know, that's how I deal with every like disability in a life, but I understand some legitimately require medication. So
yeah, absolutely. But you know, just I think this is what I talk to my clients about, because people go through different stages, right? And in some situations, they may be able to go flourish, others they can't. But having that awareness, right? And then having the courage to deal with it instead of shy away from it is really what it takes. And you just kind of build up that muscle over and over again. And it becomes easy. Right. So it sounds like you have really built that up. Okay. So what's next for you? Oh, I want to ask you a question before that. At what point with your business did you feel like, you know what? We're onto something. This is going to be successful. What happened where you realized?
The first minute. So, you know, like I didn't want to start a business. I swear to God. Like I was like, I will do anything but start my own business. And the reason is I just knew how much work it was. Okay. And I know my personality. I am a tough person to please 100% of the time, you know, like, and I understand that I have a very, very principled list and like, but I'm also a human. You're a human. 9 times out of 10, we can work something out, but the one time it's not good. So I don't know. I like realistically, I got to a point where I was like, you know, worst case, I have this LLC, whatever. The first minute I like, so first minute is relative, right? So what do I mean by first minute? Obviously not like the minute after I open the LLC. Like, I mean, like we got our first contract that replaced my salary at Meta for within 1 month, within 1 month, which is nuts. I would have to like literally look at the date because I'm not sure. I think it's within 2 weeks, but I'm not positive on that. So, but that was like crazy. And how I got that contract was that applying for jobs because Meta was not treating me well at the time. You know, they are a fantastic company, but they were not treating me well at the time. And, you know, more or less what happened was I applied, right, to other jobs on LinkedIn, easy apply, right? Like I just like rage easy applied, as we all do sometimes. And like it sucked because I was like, I wish this experience was better. I wish I could make it better. I tried to make it better, but instead, like I more or less that's a pending lawsuit, not to Meta specifically, but to someone else. And you know, it's just not fun. So, you know, I didn't want to, but more or less each place I went just made me more and more angry. And I'm like, you know, I need to spend my limited time and effort on this earth, like doing something that makes me happy and is positive, right?
Yeah.
Because I can have all this energy towards something negative, or I can have it all towards positive. And so that's my current, like, I'm trying to only do positive, and that's very hard for me. Because I'm this like energized about both positive and negative things. And so it's a matter of where do I put my brain, right? But yeah, so like I didn't want to start a business. I did because I thought it was necessary, and then we got successful quickly, thankfully. But also, you know, just like any business, like you lose one client, you get another one, it's ups and downs, there's dips, so you have to be prepared for that. And I was not mentally prepared for that. I was for all the technical reasons were fine, right? The money, the capabilities, all of that was fine. It was the CEO was not taking care of herself, right? And that's another full set of challenges. But it taught me more about me quicker than I would have learned anywhere else. And the Danielle that came out the other side is literally someone to not be fucked with. And that's a good thing to be in my industry.
Yes, it is.
I'm very strong now, and I'm very grateful for all of the struggles I've ever experienced at this point. So, but that's been very challenging. Yeah.
Let's talk about challenges and women, and visit Boeing for a minute, if you're okay with that.
That's fine. It's fine.
Okay, so we know Boeing at this moment in time, this episode will come out in a few months, but I don't imagine much will change with Boeing that quickly. So Boeing lost a door, and along with a number of other challenges. It was run by a gentleman, and now a woman has come in to fix things. I've had this conversation with a number of other women who've been in tech, who've been at high levels, about what they anticipate is going to happen with this new CEO who has stepped in, who is incredibly brilliant. What are your thoughts?
Yeah.
What you know, if you could forecast the future of Boeing with this woman, and 5 years out, what do you envision is going to happen?
Okay, I'm going to be very honest with you. I literally mute Boeing news because it is so insane now. One, but also for my mental health, because I worked for Boeing Research and Technology as a software engineer as my first degree, or my first job out of grad school, out of Georgia Tech, and they treated me horribly, horribly, to the point where I almost didn't become an engineer. Okay, so I knew about some of their problems, but I was like, it must be better in BCA. BR&T is a different division. Boeing Commercial Airplanes must be different. All these things you tell yourself to try to whatever. But now I know, like, okay, no, this is just how they operate, whatever, right? I mean, so I'll be honest with you, I don't know what you're talking about. That is such a freedom for me. But so I don't know anything about her. I don't even know who it is. But just from a gender standpoint only, I would highly say that just from a gender standpoint only, with me literally knowing nothing about her, like, females do tend to be slightly more empathetic, right, to everything, anything and all things. So if that's the case, and if she is an empathetic leader, which I hope she is, then I do expect actual things to change, because what that leadership partially was missing was empathy for employees, for people, for anything but profits. All they cared about was profits, was for since McDonnell Douglas came through and actually bought Boeing, not the other way around, even though on paper, yeah, we all know McDonnell Douglas owned that company, right? So you just need some fantastically empathetic women that are also incredibly technically capable, such as myself. Okay, I don't mean to like put myself on this crazy pedestal, but like this is what I try to be and I strive to be, and no one's perfect. But yeah, it's just having any female leader at any organization will help you. Diversity will always help you.
Yes.
And if you just have literally white men, you're not going to do shit that's different from the past 60 years.
And I think, so just to dive into that a little bit deeper, I know you haven't been watching the news, but it's okay because you've been in the professional world for long enough to have enough of a concept of this. Yeah. So they did bring her in to kind of to create systems again and fix the things that are broken. There's quite a few things. Obviously, if these type of mistakes are happening, there are some big things that need to be fixed, right? So what those who I have talked to about this situation, what they are forecasting or they're, foreseeing in the future is that she'll be there for a while. She'll fix things. She'll bring in empathy, which sounds like it's been lacking quite a bit. But then they'll replace her with a man who will come in and they'll say, he's the strategic leader. We need a strategic leader. She's not a strategic leader. And that's what we need now, getting back to the financial focus. So we're just putting it out. I'm just putting it out there. I'm not saying this is what, I know because I have been in the entrepreneurial world. I'm out of all of this. But does that sound like they may be on the right?
Yeah, if that happens, I would blink twice, be like, oh, that sucks, and then go off to my own circle of influence, right? But mostly because that is something that happens literally all the time to more talented females than myself, to be quite honest with you. And that's unfortunate, but that very likely could happen. Obviously, we're speculating completely, but I could give you real world examples where that has happened. But realistically, like it's a shame because realistically, so what the powers that be don't understand is that if you treat your people with empathy, profits will follow. Like that actually is the right way to run a company, because if your people actually are mission driven instead of just profit driven, if they are this, that, whatever, they will actually make way more money for you.
They'll be more creative. They'll solve problems. They will care. They will show up
more. They will work overtime for free, which they do anyway for you without the mission. Like, it's just, if you have the power of the people behind you for the right reasons, literally open a history book, Jesus Christ, who wins? The people that have the people behind them and they actually believe in their, like, in their mission, in their speech, Jesus, my God, right? Like just everyone in history. And then you look at everyone in history that didn't end up succeeding, right? And it's like, oh, you were actually a dictator. Okay, understood. Yeah. And what does a dictator do? They rule by fear. What did Boeing do? Maybe that. I'm not speculating, but I am, just it's frustrating. And, no matter how many times you tell them, you're doing the wrong thing. You're doing the wrong thing. If it does not affect what they consider their bottom line, which does not have the indirect, what we're talking about here, right? Like that loop of like, hey, we are profit driven, but empathy creates profit. How are you going to prove that? That's very hard to prove with numbers and metrics and all their KPIs and all their bullshit dashboards. It's very hard. It's very hard to quantify. But I'm telling you, you do it and see how your company is 10 years from now.
And that's why women-owned businesses tend to be more successful, not at the financial dollar amount, but they tend to have a longer longevity. And overall be more successful because of exactly what you're talking about. And that's why men have been coming to me, because they know that I have this community of women and they want to tap into that.
Yeah. Well, also by impact too. So that's just one thing you left off there, by impact. So female entrepreneurs are typically better at impact. What do I mean by impact? Like, so if I give $1 to charity, how much of that dollar actually goes to the people that need it? Like, impact is that 100% is ideal, but obviously we live in a world, right? So, they create B Corps a lot more than men do. What is a B Corp? Just look it up. My God, it is a fantastic vehicle to change what is what makes companies like Boeing profit driven, which is the profit sharing model. It's not profit sharing. Sorry. That's a good model. The like shareholder value bullshit.
Yeah.
And we have to maximize shareholder value. Yes, we do. Yes, we do. Should that be the only priority? Jesus Christ, no. And that is how American capitalism is ran today. And that's why you see a lot of problems, honestly.
Yes. And that's why
the
we're
only
doing
one.
what we're doing, right, Danielle? That's exactly why we're doing what we're doing. So thank you for
Yeah.
bringing up the impact part, because that is a huge part for me. I'm all about creating healthier families. It starts with the family, then it goes
Yes.
into the community, and then
Yes.
it goes farther than that. So that's
Yes.
really what the bigger impact is. Okay. So with your business, just kind of wrap this up.
Yeah.
What is your BHAG? What is your big, hairy, audacious goal that you have at this time? I know it may change, but at this moment, what is that?
Yeah, but also
do you want an
just
IPO?
yeah, no. Sorry, we will never go public, mark my words. And if we do, it's because I don't own it anymore. It's because I sold it and I'm living on a beach with a Mai Tai somewhere, realistically. But no, Igniter Engineering will never be public unless absolutely literally something that I cannot think of comes down the pipeline.
Okay,
like
fair enough.
if I'm doing that, there's literally a reason that like is beyond all of us, but whatever. But no, so we're never gonna IPO. The goal is honestly to change the world. That's the goal. It's very lofty. We have many goals. Many goals. The mini goals are really big. But they're under there, and then there's sub goals, and there's sub goals, right? So like some of the not change the world, but the ones up here are like, hey, world hunger sucks. Maybe we should try to help with that. Hey, females in Africa are really having a hard time. I help lead a charity that 100% of the proceeds go directly to Zambian African children. Half of them are female. Actually, much more than half are female. That's a whole thing. But, and why did we choose Zambia? Because it's the #1 most, what's it called? Like orphans, #1 per capita orphans, of all of the world. And that at the time the charity was started, that was the case. We hope we make an impact. Right. But so that's one thing. So we're making money for a cause. A cause is like to change the world. What does change the world mean? Like, ask me on any random day, and like I'll have different priorities. But realistically, like, the charities that I'm on the boards of and stuff is like my #1. And then everything else, like I help other people be more impactful with their impact, which I'm like a lifter, right? We all need to be lifters.
Yes.
So I say, hey, I'll automate your shit for free because I believe in what you're doing. And he'll be like, sounds good. I'll make you a connection for this. And so I'm working for free half the time. But am I changing the world? Yeah, I would like to think I am trying.
And I think that's where your power comes in. You talked about the financial power, and that's one thing that I talk about quite a bit, Danielle, with other women, because often women feel like, ooh, I don't, it's not okay for me to be financially, it's psychologically, I don't think, subconsciously, I'm sorry. They're thinking that, but that's not true. And that's what I want to change is that mindset of, no. You need that financial power so that you can go and make a bigger impact and be heard.
Exactly.
So Danielle, where can we go find out more about you and watch your journey and watch you take over the world and make such a big impact? Because we know you're going to do amazing things. Where do we go find out more about
so sweet. Yeah, so we're on LinkedIn, obviously. So you can connect with me or follow me on LinkedIn. So Danielle Stepien or Igniter Engineering at this point. We're also on Instagram. Where else? Obviously, www.igniter.engineering. Engineering is a domain, everyone. But if that is uncomfortable for you, it's www.igniterengineering.com. That's okay. That works too. But yeah, I don't know. We're everywhere and nowhere all at once. So, I'll be at the board meeting soon that I have, but we were just at Space Symposium. Like I travel quite often, but only when it's worth my time at this point because it's very exhausting. So yeah.
Well, I look forward to watching your journey and seeing what you do. Thank you so much for being here with us and sharing all your wisdom.
Thank you so much. It was a great time.
To be the best, you need to play with the best. You might not have your own personal high-level circle of women yet, but you can hang with us on the Female Millionaire Show. I'm Midori, serial entrepreneur for over 25 years. And I interview badass female founders and cut through to what you really need to know So in 20 minutes, you have what can take years to learn. If you're wanting to play bigger, come play with us. Join the female entrepreneur revolution today. Cheers.